Assalamu alaikum and good day everyone. Welcome back and let's continue our lesson on our friend John Donne. As we saw last time, we examined some texts by John Donne himself and by George Herbert, who is also a follower of John Donne. We realized that during the Elizabethan and the Jacobean ages, there were poets, major poets, following the rules of decorum. They were writing according to a set of rules they had to follow in a way or another. But despite that, despite the strong current, the many people who were writing this kind of literature, there were some poets who were writing something different, totally different. In a way, they were experimenting on new forms, new language, new themes. They were breaking the rules of decorum. They were challenging the authority itself, the mainstream opinion of what it is to write poetry and literature. Today, I'll continue talking about John Donne and examine the features of his poetry and that of the metaphysical poetry. In general, last time I summed up the class and I concluded saying that because John Donne did this, because he wrote different poetry, he was not welcomed in a way. He was not received well. He was negatively framed, remember?
Yes.
As a bad poet, as a difficult poet, as a person who doesn't write poetry but writes verse. So his poetry is not poetry because it breaks the rules. For about 200 years, John Donne and his followers were outside the English canon. Remember the English canon, and we said It's not objective?
Yes.
Because the people who determine the canon are the people who benefit from the canon, who are closer to the king probably or the queen. And it was T.S. Eliot. And we already know who T.S. Eliot is. He's a famous 20th century poet and critic. T.S. Eliot brought those poets back to life. He's resurrected them. He opened their graves and brought them back to life and made them famous again. He showed how important their poetry was. And as a matter of fact, many poets in the 20th century were following the example of John Donne and his poets. And a very important example how John Donne and his followers were negatively framed is the fact that they were described as metaphysical poets. The term meta and physical, what does it have to do with poetry? Physical and metaphysical, beyond nature and supernatural and beyond the physical. Many people try to explain the term, what it means. But personally, I believe it doesn't mean much because it was used as a negative word, as T.S. Eliot says, as a term of abuse.
Yes.
As an insult, thank you. Metaphysical. So seriously, when I tell you, okay, here is a romantic poem and here is a metaphysical poem, which one would you choose before reading? Probably the romantic, because it's a romantic poem.
Familiar.
Something you might find good, you think would be good, but metaphysical poetry. So early in the 20th century, T.S. Eliot again showed how important Donne and his followers were, and Marlowe and George Herbert. And many poets started, in a way, imitating them, following them, using them as examples. And they become, nowadays, John Donne and his followers are more important than Johnson and even probably Dryden and other poets. And this is how funny life can be and literature can be. When you are alive, nobody cares about you. 100 years later, nobody cares about you. 100 years, even 200 years later, nobody cares about you. But later on, something happens and you become the most important poet around. John Donne, in my opinion, is one of the most famous poets. Not only for his good poetry, wonderful poetry, that still, even today, talks to us like Shakespeare. But because he brought new things, new themes, new forms to English poetry early in the 17th century. So let's study more about John Donne. Remember this? Did we study this already before? Can someone read? Please.
Come with
Very good.
Come live, come live with me and be my love, and we will sum you pleasure proof.
Pleasure proof. Did we study this before already?
Yes.
Who's the poet here?
Don't doubt.
Did we study this? Haven't we studied this before? Ah, we studied something by Marlowe, remember? Are you sure?
All.
Are you sure this is Marlowe? Remember the passionate shepherd to his love? How does it begin? Does anybody memorize the lines, the first couplet? The passionate shepherd to his love. What does he say? He says,
Come with me.
but is this Marlowe? The first line is Marlowe. But is the second one Marlowe?
All.
Oh, this is Marlowe. Come live with me and be my love, and we will all the pleasures prove. And this is done. Donne says some new. Here, all of them. Here, some. But this some is new. It's interesting. So let's try to compare between these couplets. So again, this is Marlowe, but this is
Donne.
What do you notice? What is the major difference here? Same number of feet, same rhyme scheme, same almost everything, same first line, but the second line we have here all the definite article, and here we have some, but this some is new. And this is the metaphysical poet. This is John Donne. He knew, he was conscious that he was writing new poetry, that he was writing something different, that he was changing the history of English poetry in a way or another, that he was breaking the rules. Many people, critics, say that John Donne was just a digression. He just was writing poetry the way he liked. That's true. But there's also strong evidence in his poetry that John Donne knew that he was contradicting, swimming against the current, like some of you said last time, that he was breaking the rules of decorum of the Elizabethan poetry writing process. So here, remember we said this represents the Elizabethan English poetry. Rules, decorum, everything counts, and the poet is idealistic. Remember the courtly love?
Yes.
Come live with me and be like, because I own all the pleasures, the idealism, idealized love. And in John Donne, we said John Donne is realistic. He's an individual, he's more realistic. He knows he can't own all,
Yes.
but when he is doing this, he's contradicting. So he's saying some, in other ways, he's telling us, no, one can own all things.
Yes.
And at the same time, he tells us, I have new kinds of pleasure. Exactly
Like his book.
like his poetry, new kinds of poetry, in a way, poems, in a way that he is giving us new forms. We saw, for example, the new rhyme scheme for the sonnet. And we saw the new themes he introduced to the sonnet. And turned the sonnet into, from a love poem into a religious poem. The sonnet is known, remember the sonnet is the most sacred form of all poetry. 14 lines, love, Italian, Shakespearean. For Donne, he broke this. He mixed both forms and he had his own form, the John Donne form of sonnets. Is it about love?
No.
It's about religion, about God. Batter my heart, 3 persons, God. Death, be not proud, etc. In this context here, I need to talk about something called parody and something else called intertextuality. Listen, we spoke probably briefly about parody before. Parody is to parody something, to imitate,
Yes.
to copy. You do something, I do something similar to it,
Without anything.
but I change a little bit. So parody in Arabic, some kind of like muhaka, yani, something like this. When someone writes a text, you write a text similar to it.
Yes.
We studied this probably in Arabic, Jarir, Al-Farazdaq, and how they were writing. They're using the same meter and the same rhyme to write about the same thing, but it's the opposite. Now parody is a very important literary device. Generally, it means when you imitate another literary work. When you imitate another literary in a comic way. Okay? In a comic way, just to make fun of it. However, for John Donne, comedy is also serious. It's not only comic, ha ha ha, let's laugh at Marlowe, let's make fun of Marlowe. It's also serious. Why is it serious? Because in his parody, when we study the whole poem, we see how, for example, Marlowe is idealistic, is dreamy. Dreamy, you know? He dreams of owning all the pleasures. And we saw, for example, how he represents the woman as silent and weak. She doesn't reply, she doesn't act. She is not there in the text. She's just listening to him, assuming that she is there. Probably he sent her a letter. So come live with me and be my love. In a way, he's very persuasive. He's tricking her. He doesn't think highly of the woman. He thinks the woman is not smart as he is. Because any smart woman will say, come on, you're just a shepherd. I can't come with you. You don't have one pleasure, let alone all the pleasures. And instead of wasting your time, go take care of the sheep you're supposed to be taking care of. So the woman here is weak. Is not weak, actually. Is presented as weak. And in Donne, when you read the whole poem, you will realize that he presents us with a smart woman, an intellectual, a woman who thinks for herself, a woman who understands poetry and understands debate and understands what the poet is trying to do. So when John Donne is doing this, he's criticizing not only Marlowe, but criticizing Marlowe's society. Thank you very much. He's criticizing the society in which women are negatively portrayed as objects for men to own and control. But in John Donne, the woman is strong, is powerful, is independent. You know independent?
Yes.
Mustaqilla, not dependent on man. So that's why parody for John Donne is very serious. Serious because it criticizes not only other poets, but also the society itself. He's telling, why are you treating women this badly? Why? Why? Women are as smart as men and maybe smarter. We see this constantly in John Donne's poetry. Okay? The other thing is intertextuality. So again, how does John Donne criticize the society? By parodying it, by making fun, by mocking. You know, mock, make fun of something in a serious way. Intertextuality, in a way, it's similar to this. Text, you know text?
Yes.
Intertext, where texts are interconnected, linked. Intertextuality in Arabic is التناص. إيش يعني التناص? When a poet quotes, uses poetry from another poet. When a writer uses a quote, a quotation, or an extract from another text. This is called intertextuality. كيف يعني? Marlowe says, come live with me and be my love. Donne says, come live with me and... So this text has intertextuality. Why? Because originally it was said by Marlowe. But is John Donne criticized, like copying Marlowe 100%, copy-paste, photocopying him?
No, he changed.
No. But why does he do this? He could have written the whole poem without this couplet, and it would be a totally different poem. But he's telling us, wait, my whole poem here is mainly to criticize Marlowe and the society. So I'm beginning from Marlowe. You will say, hey, Donne is using Marlowe. I know many people confuse between these couplets. He is using Marlowe not as, to imitate him in a way where he is following his steps. No. Oh, I want to be like Marlowe. I want to do like Marlowe. He's doing this to criticize him and criticize his poetry. the idealism of the Elizabethan age, the way that women were negatively portrayed as silent and weak, and other things are mocked, criticized, and attacked in John Donne. He does this constantly in an amazing way. That's why many women, by the way, love John Donne's poetry, because it gives them a voice.
Yes,
It gives them a presence. And sometimes the woman is smarter than the man himself. She can't be tricked by "come live with me and be my love." Okay? So if in the exam I ask you to contextualize this, in the exam, there will be a question asking you to contextualize extracts from poetry we studied. Here you should say, this is a text by Marlowe from The Passionate Shepherd, or The Passionate Shepherd to His Love. In this couplet, the poet is inviting his mistress or beloved and promising her all the pleasures. Here we have what we call courtly love or idealized love. What is idealized love? About idealism, not realistic. Okay, so Marlowe, the passionate shepherd, promising all. However, the imperfect rhyme here might expose the poet as fake, as ungenuine, not truthful, because we realize that he is a shepherd. He doesn't own anything. If you need to comment on this, you should say, this is by John Donne from a poem called The Bait. You know what the bait is?
No.
Remember Shylock? I'll bait with it. Bait. Shylock. Pound of flesh. When they said, what do you want to do with the pound of flesh? I will bait طعم السمكة. يعني when you want to fish, you use some kind of food for, strange name for a love poem. So this is by John Donne from The Bait. In this poem, John Donne is parodying Marlowe. It's important to use the word parody. Parodying Marlowe because he's criticizing and the society. In this couplet, John Donne is more realistic because he says some, not all, and at the same time, he clearly tells us that he's bringing new themes, new issues, new forms to poetry. Again, John Donne criticizes Marlowe by parodying him. Criticizes the way he represents women. Criticizes his idealized love. He's more realistic because he uses the word some. And at the same time, John Donne clearly and consciously tells us that he is bringing new themes, new issues, and new forms to poetry. It's interesting what parody can do. So this is again the summary I said last time. Okay, for next class we can probably examine two extracts from Andrew Marvell and Herbert. What are the features of John Donne's poetry? Someone. Tell me, what are the features of John Donne's poetry? What are the characteristics? Remember, we had the characteristics of Old English, Middle English, Shakespeare, Marlowe. If you have to mention 3 or 4 features about John Donne, what is special, what is different about his poetry? Can you tell me? Please.
He has realistic issues over than...
His poetry, thank you, is more realistic than the Elizabethan poetry, which is generally idealistic. He is more realistic. His poetry is about a man's problems, a woman's problems, about individual issues. things we face probably on daily basis, not idealized love.
He changed the common love theme to relation themes.
In the sonnet, thank you. So this is an example, but generally he introduced us to new poetic forms where the meaning is more important than the rule. For example, in the sonnet, he changes the rhyme scheme, the form, and changes the theme itself of the sonnet. Very good. More. More. I just, by the way, mentioned most of them right now. Okay, again, please.
His poetry is a mixture between love, religion, and daily life issues.
Okay, so generally, his poetry mixes between secular and religious. There are many love poems by John Donne and many religious poems by John Donne, but sometimes the same poem could have a mixture of both. We discussed this when we spoke about Battle My Heart, 3% God. There is this strong love, intimate relationship between him and the person. And the person in the poem is God. More? Please?
He used parody to criticize.
He uses parody. Thank you very much. He was critical of his community. In his poetry, he shows his opinion about not only poetry, but also the society itself. So he uses parody and intertextuality to criticize his society and poetry itself. What else? Please.
He had great knowledge about the classical literature.
But it doesn't show much in his poetry because he doesn't follow the rules of neoclassicism. He breaks these rules. But again, you don't break something unless you are well read into it. Yeah? More? He broke the rules of decorum.
Critical.
We've seen his poem, remember? The Sun Rising. Some lines are 5 feet, some 2, some 3. So he, simply speaking, he breaks the rules of decorum. What else? Okay, so let's go through the list and speak about 2 or 3 features that I didn't mention before. So number 1, he introduces us to new poetic forms. For example, the sonnet. Sorry, this should be the sonnet. Okay, and he didn't create the sonnet; it was already there, but he changed the theme and the form. He uses parody and intertextuality sometimes to make fun of, to criticize the existing rules of decorum and social rules. Mainly here, the status of women. In Donne, the woman is equal to man, if not sometimes smarter and more intellectual than him. This is new. This is like Shakespeare, like Portia in The Merchant of Venice. He uses the conceit. Listen, the conceit is a very important literary device in the metaphysical poet. I can see a conceit is generally a metaphor. Remember a metaphor when you liken something to something? But here a conceit is a literary device where the relationship between the two things you're talking about is unlikely. So you liken a woman to a rose, right? You liken a woman to what? To a tree, to the moon. Beautiful thing. But these are conventional images. For John Donne, he uses totally different imagery. He uses what we call the conceit. The conceit is a long metaphor. A long metaphor. Sometimes the whole poem is one metaphor, one conceit, in which the relationship between A and B, when you say A is like B, sometimes there is a similarity. When you say she is like a rose, she is like a dove, you want to say that she's peaceful like the dove. She's beautiful as the rose, right?
Yes.
But here, for John Donne, the vehicle and the tenor do not usually have an apparent relationship. Take this example. When he talks to his wife, he tells her we are like stiff twin compasses. Do you know what a compass is? Yeah, the compass is the device that shows us north.
Yes.
But that's the compass. Here, this is different. This is in geometry, when you're doing mathematics and draw shapes in geometry, you know, you need to use this device to make circles. You know? What do you call this? Yeah. So, John Donne is telling his wife that you and I are like a stiff twin compasses. What? Weird, strange. We're not used to this. This is new. How? It's like you and I are like this. Like we're part of the same thing. We're one. It's like you and I are like this notebook. How? It's weird, strange. But when you think of it, oh, we are connected. We come together. Even if we are sometimes far away from each other, we're still connected in the center here. Oh, that's genius. That's new at the same time. So the stiff twin compasses, he tells his wife, listen, we are one. Because sometimes it's like this, the stiff twin compasses. Sometimes I go away, but when I am away, we are still connected. And he tells the woman, his wife, you are the fixed foot. You are here. So again, it's the woman who controls this relationship. Yeah. She is fixed here. She is the core of the relationship. So no matter how long I am far away, when I go round, at the end of the day, I'm going to go back as long as you are fixed in the middle. Yeah. This is called a conceit. In another poem called The Flea, this is another example. You know what the flea is? What's the flea? A tiny insect. Barghut. Barghut, you know? Barghut. Insect. The flea. So a flea bites him, sucks his blood, and bites the woman and sucks her blood. And he tells her, listen, we are, you, I, the flea are one. Because our blood is inside one. And at the beginning, it's like, this is strange in a way. But when you come to think of it, it's also genius. And imagine remember we spoke about three-person God, yeah. Trinity. Here there's the idea of Trinity again. Because the flea, you and I are like a religious triangle. We form it here. His imagery and conceit sometimes might sound strange. But when you analyze them, when you understand them in their context, they are new and at the same time genius and smart. They always make you laugh. Huh, really interesting. Because for John Donne, he was fed up with, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Oh, the trees or the flowers or the moon or the sun. Okay, realism against Elizabethan idealism. Display of wit.
He was educated.
And he was educated, and also wit, he was smart. He uses his argumentative style. He tells you an idea, and you're like, you're crazy. This can't be possible. And at the end of the poem, interesting. That could be possible in a way.
He convinced
you. Yeah, and then he's convincing, he's argumentative. But when he does this, he's not controlling the other person. Because in the flea, when he tells the woman, oh, this flea is sacred, it has our blood. What does she do? She kills the flea. Yeah. Because she can't be deceived. She's powerful, she's smart. She's like, come on. And she kills the flea. To show that she can't be tricked by him. And the dramatic, remember the poem last time, The Sun Rising? How does it begin? Busy old fool, unruly sun. This is drama. This is dramatic. He dramatizes his experience. He's sitting here. His beloved is sitting there. A flea bites her, and a flea bites him, and it's a whole poetic experience. He dramatizes this in a beautiful way. He wants to talk about his relationship to God, with God. And then, batter my heart, three-person God. It's like every poem is either an inner personal dialogue, a soliloquy, or a public speech. And that's the drama here. again, he lived during the golden age of drama, during the time of Shakespeare, and he must have seen some of Shakespeare's plays and other dramatists. So the dramatic style is also there. Each poem is like a sketch. When you go home today, try to read, for example, or watch or listen to the sun rising on YouTube. You'll see a lot of drama. Even if you look at the poem, remember, I think I still have it here. Okay. Do I have it? I don't. Okay. If you look here, everyone, there's also curtain. What's curtain? It's like there's a stage here, and the curtain opens, and people are, in a way, performing this act. This is what is meant by drama. Drama, that the single experience he lives comes out to life as a play, as a short sketch that can easily be performed. He dramatizes the experience, the way he speaks, the way he portrays it. And don't forget this, there is a lot of criticism of mainstream established rules of decorum. Simply speaking, John Donne breaks the rules. And thematically speaking, metaphysical poetry empowers women. You know what empower means? Gives them power. Gives them a voice and gives them space in their... When you compare women in Marlowe, for example, sometimes Shakespeare, and women in John Donne, you'll find that they have a strong presence. Even if sometimes they don't speak, they act. In the Flea, the woman doesn't speak. But what does she do? She does the most important thing. She acts. She kills the Flea. He gives her voice. That's why many women critics, they love John Donne. And they praise him for the way he depicts a powerful, strong woman. Even Virginia Woolf. We'll talk about Virginia Woolf probably in 2 months. She's a very famous feminist of the 20th century. She praises John Donne as a poet who depicts women as powerful as the man is. And we have many personal experiences rather than a poet who talks about the fairy queen or the queen of England or the battles. We have someone who speaks about, who conveys the inner feelings of an individual, of a man. How he feels when he's sad, when he's in love, when he's not, etc. In brief, metaphysical poetry is full of modern ideas that we still feel today and can internalize and externalize. There are scientific geographical explorations, there is original imagery there, and sometimes the inner conflict in the soliloquies like the ones we had in Shakespeare. The whole poem could be an internal monologue in a way. Finally, they experimented with language and verse forms with great originality. Originality means new things. They experimented with poetic forms like we saw in the sonnet and the other texts, the sun rising. Now, to conclude this, remember I said John Donne was not well received during his time and after. Many critics of that time were not happy with John Donne. And they said many horrible things about him. So horrible that it influenced the way we see John Donne even today. Many people nowadays, not many, but some people who don't like John Donne, generally it's not because they don't like John Donne, but because they read John Donne through these critics. When you read what Ben Jonson, John Dryden, Alexander Pope, or Samuel Johnson, what they say about John Donne, you're saying, oh my God, this is a horrible poet. And this is how serious and dangerous framing is. Remember? Yes. Framing, when critics make us think in a particular way. So I tell you, don't read Shakespeare. Shakespeare is difficult. So what do you think of Shakespeare? He's difficult. Have you read Shakespeare? No. Ben Jonson told me this, or somebody else told me. That's why it's always good to read the text itself for yourself. Go for the text. try to understand it. Read it once and twice and see how it relates to you. So, to summarize the whole reception thing, the framing, reception and framing of John Donne. Generally by mainstream critics, the official critics, he was received negatively. See, for example, Ben Jonson said he would perish.
Hanging.
And he deserved hanging. Oh my God. When someone commits a crime, kills somebody, maybe he deserves hanging, right? Why would you hang someone because he breaks the rules of poetry? This is how extreme. But in my opinion, those people viewed John Donne as a threat. Oh, someone writing different poetry. Maybe he's going to steal all the patrons, all the money from us, maybe. But many people love the rules of decorum. If you don't follow the rules, you're not a good person. John Dryden said, John Donne affects the metaphysics and he perplexes the minds of the fair sex. The fair sex, women. You know what perplex means? Confuse. John Donne confuses women. This is what Dryden says. أول حاجة, who the hell are you to speak for women? Seriously. Who are you to speak for women? Why do you appoint yourself as the spokesperson for women? His idea here, he says, in other words, he says John Donne is anti-feminist. But I think he is anti-feminist because he assumes that women will not understand John Donne's poetry. He thinks women are less intellectual, are, I don't know, maybe stupid. And that's how anti-feminist Dryden is himself. So, this guy says he would perish, he deserves hanging. John Donne said Dryden said he perplexes, he confuses the mind of the fair sex, the women. And then Samuel Johnson, another critic, said John Donne uses a combination of dissimilar images and heterogeneous ideas linked with violence. Yeah, there is some dissimilarity when you read some imagery by John Donne, some poetry, but later on, upon second reading and third reading and more analysis and more interpretation, you can see the connection. But if you don't want to see the connection, you're not going to see the connection. But again, I'll go back to framing. When you study John Donne, and the first thing you read about John Donne is what Johnson says here, that he uses dissimilar ideas, and oh yeah, he uses dissimilar ideas. Bye-bye, done. That's why it's dangerous to read poets through what critics say about him. Read the poet, read the writer face to face. Come face to face with his poetry. And finally,
Alexander.
many people said, okay, even Dryden and Johnson said, John Donne is not a poet, but they said he is an intelligent person. He is a wit. He has a strong, sharp wit. He's smart. He's genius. Even this, Alexander Pope says no. John Donne doesn't have imagination. This is how much they disliked him. But believe me, it was much for his breaking the rules, for him criticizing their way of writing, the way poetry was written, than anything else. It wasn't because his poetry was bad. The evidence is that people like T.S. Eliot nowadays, and in the 20th century, 21st century, study him, loved him, and quoted him, and used his poetry as, praised him in a way or another. So Ben Jonson was a contemporary of Shakespeare, but Dryden and Johnson and Alexander Pope came later after Shakespeare. But they played a very important role in negatively framing John Donne and kicking him out. But because John Donne is a beautiful poet, strong genius, he came back to life 200 years later. I'll stop here, and if you have a question, please do ask. Okay, please.
Do we have to write every...
No, you don't. But just that those people criticized John Donne. It's probably too much for you. Just I want you to know that at least Ben Jonson said he deserved hanging. If you know this, maybe one other thing that he perplexes the minds of the first six, that's enough. You don't have to memorize everything. And you don't have to memorize word for word. Thank you very much. I'll stop here.